In the grim darkness of the far future, there exist warriors so devoted to their cause that they would willingly embrace death 1,000 times over in service to the God Emperor of mankind. Among these zealots, none burn brighter or fight with more fervent faith than the Black Templars. These are not mere soldiers. They are holy warriors, crusaders who have waged an unending war across the galaxy for more than 10,000 years. And sometimes, in the rarest and most sacred of moments, one of these warriors receives a gift that elevates them beyond even their already exalted brothers. They receive a vision from the Emperor himself. This is the story of one such warrior, a tale of faith tested in the crucible of war, of visions that blur the line between divine guidance and madness, of a life consumed by holy purpose. This is the brutal life of a Black Templar who saw the Emperor. Before we begin, understand this. The Black Templars are not like other Space Marine chapters. While most chapters view the Emperor as their genetic progenitor and the architect of their creation, they maintain a certain distance from the worship that defines the Imperial cult. But the Black Templars rejected this philosophical separation long ago. To them, the Emperor is not merely the greatest of men. He is God incarnate. They worship him with a fervor that disturbs even their fellow Space Marines. This fundamental difference shapes everything about who they are, how they fight, and what they believe. When the Second Founding shattered the mighty Space Marine legions into smaller chapters, the Imperial fists were torn apart, despite their Primarch Rogel Dawn's fierce resistance. The most zealous and hot-blooded warriors of that legion followed First Captain Sigismund into the founding of the Black Templars. Sigismund, who had served as the Emperor's champion during the Siege of Terra, carried with him an unquenchable fire. He swore an oath that would define his new chapter for all eternity. Never would they rest. Never would they cease in their prosecution of the Emperor's enemies. They would prove their loyalty through eternal crusade. That oath has never been broken. For 10 millennia, the Black Templars have waged the longest Space Marine crusade in the Imperium's history. They have no homeworld, no fortress monastery anchoring them to a single planet. Instead, they live aboard massive crusade fleets, armadas of warships that carry these warriors from one war zone to the next. Where they conquer worlds, they establish chapter keeps, fortified outposts that serve as recruitment stations and staging grounds. But these are temporary homes at best. The Black Templars are always moving, always crusading, always hunting for the next enemy to destroy in the Emperor's name. This eternal crusade has shaped them into something unique among the Adeptus Astartes. They ignore the Codex Astartes, that sacred tome of military doctrine that governs most Space Marine chapters. They exceed the traditional 1,000-warrior limitation, with some estimates suggesting they field several thousand battle brothers scattered across numerous crusade fleets. They organize themselves not into companies, but into ad hoc fighting forces built around personal bonds of brotherhood and familiarity. And most significantly, they embrace a religious fervor that borders on fanaticism, even by the standards of the Imperium. It is within this context of absolute faith and perpetual warfare that our story begins. The boy who would one day receive the Emperor's vision was born on a feudal world called Valorum's Gate, a planet locked in an endless cycle of medieval warfare. The Black Templars had established a chapter keep there centuries before, after cleansing the world of a heretical uprising that had threatened to drag it into the worship of the dark gods. The keep stood as a black fortress on a mountaintop, visible from almost anywhere on the planet's primary continent. Every child grew up seeing it, knowing that within those walls dwelt angels of death who served the God Emperor himself. The boy's name was Christoph, though that name would be stripped from him the moment he began his journey toward becoming a Space Marine. He was the third son of a minor noble family, destined for obscurity, or perhaps a career in the planetary defense forces if he proved worthy. But Christoph wanted more. He had heard the stories. He had listened to the traveling preachers who spoke of the Black Templars and their eternal crusade. He had watched from a distance when warriors in black armor descended from the keep to recruit from the planet's population. On his 14th birthday, Christoph made a decision that would alter the course of his existence. He would become an expectant, one of those who sought to join the Black Templars. This was not a simple matter of presenting oneself at the keep's gates. The Black Templars demanded proof of devotion before they would even consider a candidate. An expectant had to make the journey to the keep under their own power, facing whatever dangers lay in wait. Only those who survived the pilgrimage would be tested for worthiness. The journey to the keep covered nearly 200 miles of hostile terrain. The roads were plagued by bandits, mutants, and worse. Wild beasts haunted the forests. Mountain passes could bury a traveler in avalanches. The Black Templars deliberately established their keeps in remote, dangerous locations. They wanted only those with the determination and strength to reach them. Christoph left his family's estate before dawn, carrying only a knife, a water skin, and the clothes on his back. His father had not blessed the journey. His mother had wept. His brothers had called him a fool. But Christoph had felt something stirring in his chest, a calling he could not name or resist. He needed to prove himself worthy of the Emperor's notice. The first week nearly killed him. He had trained as a pair, warrior in his father's service, had learned to fight with sword and spear, but nothing had prepared him for the reality of traveling alone through wilderness. He ran out of food on the third day and had to hunt for survival. He killed a wild boar with his knife after it charged him from the underbrush, a desperate fight that left him bleeding from a gash along his ribs. He learned to move quietly, to hide when he heard voices on the road, because he quickly discovered that many of those voices belonged to bandits who would happily kill a lone traveler for sport. On the 9th day, he encountered other expectants, 3 boys roughly his age who had begun their journeys from different parts of the continent. They formed an uneasy alliance, knowing that cooperation increased their chances of reaching the keep alive. One of them, a blacksmith's son named Gunther, carried a hammer that had been his father's gift. Another, Peter, had been a sergeant in the planetary militia before deciding to seek a greater purpose. The third, Aldrich, rarely spoke, but moved with a quiet competence that suggested he had survived worse than this journey. Together, they crossed mountain passes where the air grew so thin that every breath felt like swallowing knives. They descended into valleys where mutant creatures lurked in caves, twisted things that might once have been human, but had been warped by exposure to radiation or darker forces. They fought when they had to, fled when fighting would mean death, and pressed forward with grim determination. Christoph learned something important during those weeks of travel. He learned that faith alone was not enough. The Emperor might watch over the righteous, but he expected his faithful to fight for their survival. Prayer could strengthen the spirit, but only action could preserve the body. This lesson would serve him well in the years to come. When they finally reached the keep's outer walls, 23 days after Christoph had left his home, only 3 of their group remained. Gunther had fallen during a fight with mutants in a mountain pass, dragged screaming into a cave before they could save him. The loss had shaken them all, but they had pushed forward because stopping meant dying. The keep's gates stood 30 feet tall, crafted from dark metal that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. No guards were visible on the walls, but Christoph felt eyes watching as they approached. They were not the only expectants gathered before those gates. Perhaps 40 other candidates stood in small groups, having made their own journeys from across the planet. Some bore terrible scars from their pilgrimages. Others looked surprisingly unscathed, suggesting they had been either very skilled or very lucky. A Black Templar emerged from the gates as the sun reached its zenith. He wore power armor, painted in the chapter's distinctive black and white, with red trim, marking him as an initiate. His helmet's eye lenses glowed with cold light as he surveyed the assembled expectants. When he spoke, his voice was amplified by his armor's vox speakers, carrying across the courtyard with the weight of divine authority. "You have proven your determination by reaching this place," he said. "But determination alone does not make one worthy of the Black Templars. You will now be tested. Most of you will fail. Some of you will die. Those who survive and prove themselves worthy will be given the greatest honor in the Imperium. You will be remade as the Emperor's warriors. You will join the Eternal Crusade." The tests began immediately. They were designed to break the weak and reveal the worthy. The expectants were driven through combat drills that lasted for days without rest. They were forced to run until their legs gave out, then beaten until they ran again. They fought each other in brutal melees that left several candidates crippled or dead. The Black Templars watched everything with cold assessment, noting who fought with courage, who showed mercy when none was warranted, who demonstrated the zealous aggression that defined the chapter. Christoph fought like a man possessed. Every drill, every challenge, every test became an opportunity to prove himself worthy of the Emperor's notice. When they were ordered to scale a cliff face without equipment, he climbed until his hands bled and his muscles screamed. When they were pitted against each other in combat trials, he struck with righteous fury, channeling all his faith into his blows. He broke Peter's arm in one such bout and felt no guilt. The weak had no place among the Emperor's chosen. After 2 weeks of constant testing, the Black Templars finally made their selection. Of the 40 expectants who had gathered before the gates, only 7 were deemed worthy. Christoph was among them. Aldrich, the quiet one from their mountain crossing, stood beside him. The others were strangers, but they would become brothers in ways that blood could never match. The selected candidates were brought into the keep's interior, a labyrinth of stone corridors lit by flickering torches and plasma globes. The architecture was severe and uncompromising, with every surface decorated by icons of faith. Statues of the Emperor stood in alcoves, their stern gazes following the initiates as they walked. The walls were covered in engravings depicting battles from the chapter's history, 10,000 years of warfare rendered in stone. They were brought before a chaplain, one of the chapter's spiritual leaders. His armor was black as night, decorated with skulls and purity seals. His skull-faced helmet regarded them with empty eye sockets that somehow still conveyed judgment. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of absolute conviction. "You have proven yourselves worthy of consideration," the chaplain said. "But before you can truly begin your journey toward becoming Black Templars, you must understand what awaits you. Your old lives are forfeit. Your names, your families, your past identities matter nothing now. You will be unmade and remade. Your bodies will be transformed by the Emperor's gene seed, rebuilt into weapons of war. Your minds will be filled with knowledge of warfare and doctrine. Your souls will be bound to the Eternal Crusade. Many do not survive the transformation. Those who do will never again be fully human. Is this what you want? Is this worth the price?" The question hung in the air like a blade. Christoph thought of his family, his home, the life he was abandoning. Then he thought of the keep, standing watch over his world, the warriors in black armor who protected humanity from threats beyond imagining. He thought of the Emperor, enthroned on terror, guiding his Imperium through 10,000 years of darkness. And he knew there was only one answer he could give. "Yes," he said, and his voice did not waver. "This is what I want. I wish to serve the Emperor as one of his chosen warriors. I will pay any price." The other candidates echoed his declaration. The chaplain nodded slowly, accepting their oaths. "So be it," he said. "From this moment, you are neophytes of the Black Templars. Your training begins now." The transformation process was agony beyond anything Christoph had imagined. The gene seed implantation began immediately, organs harvested from fallen Black Templars surgically implanted into his body. Each new organ brought pain, as his system fought to accept the foreign tissue. The apothecaries showed no mercy during the procedures, working with cold efficiency to rebuild him into something stronger, faster, more durable than any normal human could ever be. They implanted the secondary heart first, giving him redundant circulation that would keep him alive even if one heart failed. The Biscopea and os modula followed, organs that would enhance his muscle growth and strengthen his bones to support the incredible mass he would eventually carry. The Preomnor and Omophagea granted him the ability to eat nearly anything and absorb genetic memory from consumed flesh. The Multilung allowed him to breathe in hostile atmospheres. The Oculobe enhanced his vision to superhuman levels. Each implantation required time for integration, followed by chemical therapies and hypnotic conditioning to ensure the organs functioned properly. Between procedures, Christoph endured training that would have killed a normal human. He lifted weights that would break bones in unaugmented bodies. He ran through obstacle courses designed to test the limits of his enhanced physiology. He studied the chapter's history and doctrine, committing 10,000 years of warfare and faith to memory. But the most important part of his training came from his assigned mentor. In the Black Templars, neophytes are not organized into a scout company like most chapters. Instead, each neophyte is paired with an initiate, a fully battle-ready space marine who takes personal responsibility for his training. The bond between initiate and neophyte is sacred. The initiate swears to prepare his student for the brotherhood or die trying. The neophyte swears absolute obedience and devotion to his mentor. Christoph's mentor was called Brother Bardas, a veteran of 3 centuries of warfare. His armor bore the marks of countless battles, scratches and dents that he refused to have repaired because each one represented a lesson learned or an enemy slain. He was harsh but fair, driving Christoph mercilessly while also protecting him from the worst excesses of training that might cripple him before his transformation was complete. Brother Bardas taught Christoph that faith without action was meaningless. "The Emperor watches us," he would say during their training sessions, "but he does not fight our battles for us. We are his instruments, his weapons against the darkness. We must be sharp. We must be strong. We must be willing to sacrifice everything. Faith is not passive. Faith is aggressive. Faith kills the enemy and protects the innocent. Faith is a sword in your hand and the will to use it." These lessons became the foundation of Christoph's worldview. He learned to see every moment as a test of faith, every challenge as an opportunity to prove himself worthy. When his body screamed in agony during training, he pushed harder. When doubt whispered in the quiet moments, he prayed louder. When fear threatened to paralyze him, he charged forward with a battle cry on his lips. The chaplains reinforced these lessons through constant indoctrination. Every day began and ended with prayer. Every meal was preceded by benedictions to the emperor. The history of the chapter was taught not as dry facts, but as sacred scripture. Each battle a holy text, revealing the emperor's will. Christoph learned of Sigismund, who had sworn the oath that defined the chapter. He learned of the First Black Crusade, where Sigismund had fallen battling Abaddon the Despoiler. He learned of the countless crusades that had followed, 10,000 years of unbroken warfare. But alongside the victories, he learned of the costs. He learned that Black Templars do not die peacefully in their beds. They die in battle, burning with righteous fury, giving their lives in service to the Emperor. He learned that the crusade demands everything and offers nothing but the honor of service. And he learned that this was not a burden, but a privilege beyond measure. After 2 years of transformation and training, Christoph received his final organ implantations. The black carapace was grown beneath his skin, a layer of enhanced tissue that would interface directly with power armor. This was the most painful procedure of all, requiring weeks of recovery as the artificial skin integrated with his nervous system. But when it was complete, he could feel the armor respond to his thoughts as naturally as his own body. He was no longer fully human. He stood nearly 8 feet tall, his body a mass of muscle and bone far denser than any normal man. His senses could detect threats in near darkness, smell differences in air composition, hear heartbeats from across a room. He could fight for days without rest, survive wounds that would kill lesser beings, and endure environmental conditions that would be instantly lethal to normal humans. But the greatest change was internal. The psychological conditioning, the hypnotic suggestion, the constant indoctrination had reshaped his mind as completely as the gene seed had reshaped his body. He no longer thought like the boy who had left Valorum's gate. That person might as well have been a stranger. Christoph was now a weapon in the Emperor's arsenal, every thought bent towards service and warfare. His first taste of combat came during a training exercise that turned deadly serious. The Black Templars practiced their skills constantly, even when not actively deployed on crusade. Brother Bardas took Christoph and several other neophytes on what was supposed to be a simple patrol through the mountains surrounding the keep. They were hunting for mutant raiders who had been harassing nearby villages. They found more than raiders. Hidden in a deep cave system, the mutants had been preparing an attack on the keep itself. They numbered in the hundreds, twisted creatures that might once have been human, but had been corrupted beyond recognition. Some walked on all fours. Others had extra limbs or malformed features that spoke of genetic damage or darker influences. They were led by something worse, a creature that stood 9 feet tall and radiated an aura of wrongness that made Christoph's skin crawl. Brother Bardas did not hesitate. "The Emperor watches," he said, raising his bolt pistol. No pity, no remorse, no fear. The neophytes echoed the battle cry as they charged into the caves. Christoph carried a shotgun and a combat knife, standard armament for neophytes who had not yet earned the right to wear full power armor. The weapon felt heavy in his hands, but Brother Bardas had trained him well. He moved through the caves with his brothers, firing into the mutant hordes, reloading without thought, killing with mechanical efficiency. But it was not mechanical for long. As the battle progressed, something awakened in Christoph's chest. He felt his blood burning, his heart pounding with righteous fury. These creatures were abominations, perversions of the Emperor's design. They deserved no mercy, no quarter, no chance at survival. He began to kill with increasing ferocity, shouting prayers as he fired, invoking the Emperor's name with every trigger pull. When his ammunition ran out, he drew his knife and closed to melee range. The combat became a blur of blood and violence. He stabbed and slashed, using every technique Brother Bardas had drilled into him. A mutant's claws raked across his unarmored chest, drawing blood, but he barely felt the pain. He grabbed the creature's head and twisted until its neck snapped. Another charged him from the side. He caught it with his knife through the throat, then kicked its dying body into 2 more mutants behind it. Brother Bardas fought beside him, his bolter barking death with every shot. The other neophytes spread through the caves, working in pairs to eliminate pockets of resistance. The battle lasted for hours, a grinding slaughter that ended only when every mutant lay dead. As Christoph stood among the bodies, breathing heavily and covered in blood both his own and the enemy's, he felt something fundamental shift inside him. This was what he had been made for. This was his purpose. The Emperor had designed him to be a weapon against humanity's enemies, and he had proven that design sound. The doubt that had sometimes haunted him during training evaporated like morning dew. He knew with absolute certainty that he had found his calling. Brother Bardas approached him, examining his wounds. "You fought well," the initiate said, "but you took risks that could have gotten you killed. Your faith was strong, but faith alone will not stop a claw from ripping out your throat. Remember that strength and skill must accompany zeal. The Emperor needs living warriors, not dead martyrs who failed to fulfill their duty." Christoph absorbed the lesson. Zeal tempered by skill, faith backed by action. These would become principles that guided him through the years ahead. After 3 years as a neophyte, fighting alongside Brother Bardas in countless skirmishes and battles, Christoph was finally deemed ready for elevation to full initiate status. The ceremony took place in the keep's chapel, a vast hall dominated by a golden statue of the Emperor, standing triumphant over the bodies of traitors and aliens. Every Black Templar stationed at the keep attended, dozens of warriors in black armor standing in silent witness. The chaplain who had first accepted Christoph as a neophyte, now performed the elevation ritual. Christoph knelt before him, still wearing the light armor of a neophyte, but knowing that would soon change. "You have proven yourself worthy through trial and combat," the chaplain intoned. "You have learned the ways of warfare and embraced the doctrine of faith. You have fought the Emperor's enemies and emerged victorious. Now, you stand ready to join your brothers as a fully anointed warrior of the Black Templars. But first, you must swear the oaths that bind us all." Christoph spoke the words that every Black Templar had spoken since the chapter's founding. "I swear by the Emperor's light that I shall know no fear. I swear that I shall pursue his enemies unto death and beyond. I swear that I shall never rest while evil still draws breath in this galaxy. I am a Black Templar, and my crusade shall never end." The chaplain anointed him with sacred oils, marking his forehead with the sign of the Aquila. "Rise, Brother Christoph, initiate of the Black Templars. Take your place among the Emperor's chosen." Christoph rose as a fully recognized space marine. The armor that was brought forth for him was ancient, having served countless warriors over the centuries. It bore the scars of 10,000 years of warfare, but it had been maintained with religious devotion by the chapter's tech marines. As the armor was fitted piece by piece, Christoph felt the black carapace interface with each component. The armor became an extension of his body, responding to his thoughts with perfect synchronicity. When the process was complete, he stood transformed. He was no longer merely a warrior in training. He was a Black Templar, one of the Emperor's most zealous servants, and his crusade was just beginning. As an initiate, Christoph's role changed fundamentally. He was now a fully deployable warrior, capable of being assigned to any crusade that required reinforcements. But more than that, he was given a sacred duty that would define much of his service. He was assigned a neophyte of his own to train and mentor, continuing the cycle that had shaped him. The neophyte's name had been Aldrich before he became a candidate, the quiet one who had traveled through the mountains with Christoph years before. Now he was simply Neophyte Aldrich, and Christoph was responsible for his training and survival. The role of mentor forced Christoph to see warfare through new eyes. He could no longer simply throw himself into combat with reckless abandon. He had to think tactically, protect his charge, ensure that Aldrich survived long enough to learn the lessons that would make him a capable warrior. This responsibility tempered Christoph's natural zealousness without diminishing his faith. He learned to balance aggression with caution, to know when to charge and when to withdraw. He learned that the Emperor's will was not always served by dying gloriously. Sometimes, the Emperor needed his warriors to survive, to fight another day, to teach the next generation of crusaders. Christoph and Aldrich were assigned to a crusade fleet that was preparing to depart Valorum's Gate for the war-torn sectors beyond. The fleet consisted of 3 battle barges, a dozen strike cruisers, and numerous support vessels. Aboard these ships traveled nearly 1,000 Black Templars, organized into flexible fighting companies led by marshals and castellans. This was not the entire chapter, just one of many crusade fleets operating across the galaxy, but it was a formidable force by any measure. The Crusade's objective was to cleanse a series of systems that had fallen under the control of Orc warbands. The Greenskins had overrun several Imperial worlds, slaughtering or enslaving their populations. The Black Templars would not tolerate such an affront to the Emperor's domain. They would reclaim these worlds, or die trying. Christoph's first deployment as a full initiate came when the fleet entered the Vorgan system. The planet Vorgan Prime had been an agricultural world supplying food to nearby hive worlds. Now, it was an orc-infested war zone. Its cities burned, and its fields trampled by the Greenskins' crude vehicles. The Black Templars deployed in force, with Christoph's squad dropping via Thunderhawk gunship directly into one of the planet's major population centers. The city was a ruin. Buildings stood as hollow shells, their windows shattered and walls blackened by fire. Bodies littered the streets, most too decomposed to identify, but clearly human. And everywhere, there were orcs. They swarmed through the ruins like locusts, fighting each other as much as they fought the few remaining human defenders. Christoph's squad hit the ground running, literally leaping from their Thunderhawk while it was still 10 feet above the street. They formed up immediately, bolt guns ready, and began their advance through the city. The mission was simple in concept, brutal in execution. They would move building by building, street by street, killing every orc they encountered until the city was cleansed. The fighting was savage. Orcs are not subtle enemies. They charge headlong into battle, relying on their incredible toughness and raw strength to overwhelm their foes. Against normal humans, this tactic works devastatingly well. Against space marines in power armor, it merely meant they died in greater numbers. Christoph fired his bolt gun with disciplined precision, each shot a prayer to the Emperor. The mass-reactive rounds exploded inside orc bodies, turning green flesh into red mist. Beside him, neophyte Aldrich fought with increasing confidence, following Christoph's example and killing with growing efficiency. The other members of their squad, all veterans with decades or centuries of experience, moved through the ruins like angels of death. But orcs are dangerous even when outmatched. They are savage, cunning in their own brutal way, and utterly fearless. A particularly large orc, a knob leading a mob of boys, charged out of a ruined building directly at Christoph. The creature stood nearly as tall as a space marine and wielded a crude power claw that could tear through ceramite armor. Christoph dodged the first swing, his enhanced reflexes allowing him to move with speed that would have seemed impossible for someone wearing half a ton of armor. He fired his bolt gun at point-blank range, emptying the magazine into the orc's torso. The creature staggered, but did not fall. It swung again with its claw, and this time Christoph could not avoid the blow entirely. The crude weapon scraped along his pauldron, scoring deep gouges in the armor, but failing to penetrate. "For the Emperor!" Christoph roared, discarding his empty bolt gun and drawing his chainsword. The weapon roared to life, its adamantine teeth spinning at thousands of revolutions per minute. He met the orc's next swing with his own blade, driving the chainsword into the joint where the power claw attached to the creature's arm. Flesh and bone parted as the weapon chewed through the orc's limb. The knob bellowed in rage and pain, but Christoph gave it no chance to recover. He reversed his strike, bringing the chainsword across the orc's throat. Green blood sprayed in a wide arc as the creature's head toppled from its shoulders. The massive body stood for another moment, as if unwilling to accept death, then collapsed. Christoph retrieved his bolt gun, reloading it with a fresh magazine as he surveyed the battlefield. The orc mob had been scattered by the death of their leader, the surviving greenskins fleeing into the ruins. It was a temporary victory. There would be more orcs, always more, until the planet was completely cleansed. The campaign on Vorgen Prime lasted for 3 months. The Black Templars fought with relentless determination, never resting, never yielding ground once taken. They slept in shifts, maintaining constant pressure on the orc forces. They requisitioned supplies from orbiting ships, but never retreated to the fleet for rest. The crusade demanded total commitment. Christoph fought in dozens of engagements during those months. He led assaults on orc fortifications, defended reclaimed territory against counterattacks, and hunted down fleeing war bosses through the ruins of cities. Neophyte Aldrich fought beside him in every battle, learning through blood and fire how to be a Black Templar. It was during the final push to reclaim the planetary capital that Christoph first felt something unusual. The fighting had been particularly brutal, with waves of orcs throwing themselves against the Black Templars' positions. Christoph had been in combat for nearly 16 hours straight, killing until his chainsword's motor burned out and he was forced to fight with combat knife and fist. His armor was breached in 3 places. Blood, both his and the enemy's, coated him from head to foot. As he stood over the body of yet another fallen orc, something shifted in his perception. For just a moment, the world seemed to slow down. He felt a presence, vast and terrible and glorious, watching him from somewhere beyond reality. He felt judgment passing over him, weighing his worthiness, measuring his faith. Then the moment passed. and the battle raged on. Christoph shook his head, attributing the experience to exhaustion and the fury of combat. He had no way of knowing that this was merely the first whisper of something that would fundamentally alter his existence. After Vorgan Prime was cleansed, the Crusade fleet moved to the next war zone, and then the next. Christoph fought on world after world, each battlefield blending into the next. He fought orcs on jungle planets, where the canopy was so thick that sunlight never reached the ground. He fought dark Eldar raiders in the ruins of hive cities they had attacked for slaves. He fought heretic cultists who had sold their souls to the ruinous powers in exchange for false promises of power. Through it all, he remained a zealot in service to the Emperor. His faith never wavered, even when he saw things that would have broken lesser men. He witnessed entire populations slaughtered by the enemies of mankind. He saw worlds burned to ash rather than allowed to fall to chaos. He lost brothers in battle, warriors he had fought beside for years cut down by enemy action or simply ground down by the endless nature of warfare. After a decade of constant crusading, neophyte Aldrich completed his training and was elevated to full initiate status. The ceremony took place aboard one of the Crusade fleet's battle barges, in a chapel that had served as the spiritual center for countless warriors over the centuries. Christoph stood among the assembled Black Templars as Aldrich swore his oaths and felt a fierce pride in his former students' achievements. With Aldrich elevated, Christoph was assigned a new neophyte to train, and so the cycle continued. He fought, he taught, he served the Emperor without question or complaint. Years became decades. His armor accumulated more battle scars. His kill count grew into the hundreds, then the thousands. He became a veteran, respected by his brothers for his zealousness and his skill in combat. But the strange moments of altered perception continued, growing more frequent as the years passed. Sometimes in the midst of battle, sometimes during meditation in the chapel, Christoph would feel that vast presence observing him. It never spoke, never communicated directly, but its attention was unmistakable. He mentioned it to no one, unsure whether he was experiencing something divine or if his mind was beginning to crack under the strain of constant warfare. Then came the call that would change everything. After 3 decades of crusading through the eastern fringes, Christoph's fleet received an astropathic message of the utmost urgency. The message came directly from High Marshal Helbrecht himself, the chapter master of the Black Templars, and the supreme commander of all their scattered crusades. The Orc warlord, Gazgakul Mag Uruk Thraka, had returned to Armageddon. The name was legendary even among the Black Templars. Gazgakul was the most dangerous Orc warlord to emerge since the War of the Beast 10,000 years ago. He had nearly conquered Armageddon during the Second War for that world, only to be driven back through the combined efforts of multiple Space Marine chapters and billions of Imperial Guardsmen. The Black Templars had played a crucial role in that war, and they had sworn oaths to hunt Gazgakul down if he ever returned. Now he had returned, at the head of the largest Orc Agsh ever assembled. Billions of greenskins had descended upon Armageddon, threatening to overwhelm the planet's formidable defenses through sheer numbers. High Marshal Helbrecht was gathering every available Black Templar for the planet's defense. 3 full crusades would answer the call, thousands of warriors converging on Armageddon from across the galaxy. Christoph's crusade fleet immediately altered course for the Armageddon system. The journey would take weeks, even with the fleet's navigators pushing their ships to maximum speed through the warp. Every day that passed meant more Imperial citizens dying on Armageddon, more ground lost to the greenskin tide. The Black Templars prepared themselves for the largest battle most of them had ever faced. During the journey, Christoph felt the strange presence more intensely than ever before. It pressed upon his consciousness during his waking hours and invaded his dreams when he tried to rest. He found himself drawn to the chapel more frequently, spending hours in meditation before the statue of the Emperor that dominated the sacred space. One night, 3 days before the fleet would emerge from the warp into the Armageddon system, Christoph knelt before that statue and prayed with desperate intensity. He had served the Emperor for nearly 4 decades now. He had killed in his name, bled in his service, and would willingly die for his glory. But he needed to understand what was happening to him. Was this divine guidance, or was he losing his sanity to the psychological strain of decades at war? "Show me," he whispered to the golden statue. "If this is your will, show me what you want from me. I am your servant. Use me as you see fit." The statue did not answer. The Emperor, locked away on terror upon his golden throne, could not speak directly to his servants. But as Christoph knelt there in the dim light of the chapel, he felt that vast presence surge forward, no longer distant, but immediate, overwhelming, terrible in its absolute majesty. His vision went white. The chapel disappeared. Reality itself seemed to peel away like paper burning in flame, and Christoph found himself standing in a place that could not exist. A space between spaces where time held no meaning, and the rules of the material universe were suggestions rather than laws. Before him stood a figure that burned with light so intense it should have destroyed him instantly. But he was not destroyed. He was held, supported by power beyond comprehension, forced to witness something that mortals were never meant to see. "My son," the figure said, and its voice was thunder and music, and the sound of a million prayers spoken simultaneously. "My zealous son, who has served me without question or complaint. I have watched you. I have measured your faith. You are worthy of the burden I will place upon you." Christoph tried to speak, tried to ask what burden, tried to understand what was happening. But before he could form the words, the vision changed. He saw Armageddon, its surface covered in battle. He saw himself fighting in a ruined city, a massive temple rising above the rubble. He saw orcs beyond counting, a tide of green flesh and crude weapons, and he saw himself standing against that tide, holding a sword that blazed with righteous fury. "You will be my champion," the figure said. "You will carry my will into battle. You will inspire your born brothers to heights they did not know they could reach. This is what I ask of you, my son. Will you accept this burden?" Even knowing that this might cost him his life, even understanding that the path of the Emperor's champion was one from which there was no return, Christoph did not hesitate. "I accept," he said. "I am your weapon. Use me." The vision shattered like glass struck by a hammer. Christoph gasped, lurching forward, and found himself back in the chapel. He was no longer kneeling before the statue. He had collapsed entirely, lying face down on the cold stone floor. His body felt like it had been struck by lightning, every nerve ending screaming with remembered pain, or perhaps ecstasy. He could not tell the difference. He tried to stand, and nearly fell again. How long had he been lost in the vision? Minutes? Hours? He checked his armor's chronometer and discovered that 3 hours had passed. 3 hours of his life simply gone, consumed by the vision of the Emperor. Christoph staggered to his feet, leaning on the base of the statue for support. He knew with absolute certainty that he had been chosen. The Emperor had marked him as his champion, but he also knew that he could not simply announce this to his brothers. The tradition of the Emperor's champion was sacred. He had to present himself to the chaplains, confess what he had seen, and allow them to judge whether his vision was true or merely madness. He left the chapel and made his way through the battle barge's corridors toward the reclusium, the sacred quarters where the chaplains maintained their own chapels and meditation cells. His steps felt unsteady, as if the deck plates beneath his feet were not quite solid. The vision had shaken something fundamental in his perception of reality. The chaplain on duty was Brother Chaplain Corvus, a veteran of 500 years and one of the most respected spiritual leaders in the Crusade fleet. He looked up from his prayers as Christoph entered the reclusium, his skull-faced helmet regarding the initiate with what might have been curiosity or concern. "Brother Christoph," Corvus said, his voice a deep rumble even without vox amplification. "You look as though you have seen a ghost. What brings you here at this hour?" Christoph knelt before the chaplain, assuming the position of confession. "Brother Chaplain, I must report something that I believe to be significant. I have received a vision from the Emperor." The words hung in the air between them. Such claims were not made lightly among the Black Templars. The chapter revered visions as signs of divine favor, but they also knew that false visions could lead warriors astray. Every claimed vision had to be scrutinized, tested, verified as genuine before it could be accepted. "Tell me everything," Corvus commanded. "Leave out no detail, no matter how small or strange it may seem." Christoph recounted the entire experience, from the weeks of unusual perceptions leading up to the vision, to the overwhelming moment of contact with the divine presence. He described the burning figure, the voice that spoke with authority beyond question, the scenes of battle he had witnessed. He spoke of being called the Emperor's champion and accepting that role without hesitation. When he finished, Brother Chaplain Corvus was silent for a long moment. The skull-faced helmet revealed nothing of what the chaplain might be thinking. Finally, he spoke. "What you describe matches the accounts given by Emperor's champions throughout our chapter's history," Corvus said carefully. "The presence that overwhelms all other sensation, the vision of coming battle, the offer of service, and the acceptance without question. These are the signs that the Emperor has chosen one of his warriors for a sacred duty." "Then you believe my vision was genuine?" Christoph asked. "I believe that something happened to you in that chapel," Corvus replied. "Whether it was truly the Emperor or some manifestation of your own psyche pushed to extremes by decades of warfare, I cannot say with certainty. But I know this: we are days away from one of the largest battles in our chapter's history. If the Emperor intends to send us a champion, now would be the time. Come, we must bring you before the other chaplains and the Marshal. They will make the final determination." What followed was one of the most intense examinations Christoph had ever endured. 4 chaplains questioned him for hours, probing every detail of his vision, testing his certainty, looking for any sign of deception or self-delusion. They examined his service record, reviewing 4 decades of combat reports and commendations. They spoke with warriors who had fought beside him, assessing his character and his faith. Through it all, Christoph remained certain of what he had experienced. He could not prove the vision was real. He could not summon the divine presence on command or perform miracles to demonstrate his chosen status. All he had was his faith and his conviction that the Emperor had called him to serve in a specific way. Finally, after nearly a full day of examination, the chaplains reached their decision. Marshal Adelhard, the leader of Christoph's crusade, stood before him in the reclusium, along with the 4 chaplains who had conducted the examination. "Brother Christoph," the Marshal said, "the chaplains have determined that your vision bears all the hallmarks of genuine divine contact. Your service record demonstrates the kind of zealous faith that the Emperor values. Your brothers speak of your courage and your unwavering devotion. We accept your vision as legitimate. You are hereby recognized as the Emperor's champion for this crusade." Relief and awe washed through Christoph in equal measure. The title of Emperor's champion was not merely honorary. It came with specific duties and sacred responsibilities. He would be given the finest war gear the crusade could provide. He would stand at the forefront of every battle, seeking out the enemy's greatest champions and destroying them in single combat. He would serve as a living icon of the Emperor's will, inspiring his brothers through example. But more than any of that, he would be forever changed. Once anointed as the Emperor's champion, a warrior could never fully return to his previous role. The visions would continue, perhaps growing more intense. The burden of carrying the Emperor's will would mark him for the rest of his life, however long or short that might be. "I accept this honor," Christoph said, his voice steady despite the magnitude of what was happening. "I will serve as the Emperor's champion until the vision is fulfilled or death claims me." The anointing ceremony took place in the main chapel, with every Black Templar aboard the battle barge in attendance. Christoph was stripped of his standard war gear and his power armor, standing bare before his brothers, wearing only a simple robe. The symbolism was clear. He was being unmade so that he could be remade as something more. The chaplains performed rituals that dated back to the chapter's founding, prayers and benedictions that Sigismund himself had first spoken when Rogel Dawn named him the first Emperor's champion during the Siege of Terror. They anointed Christoph with holy oils blessed by the High Marshal. They marked him with ashes from burned purity seals. They spoke litanies of faith and warfare that filled the chapel with their fervor. Then came the arming of the champion. From the Crusade's most sacred reliquaries, the chaplains brought forth two items of legendary significance. The first was the armor of faith, a suit of artificer power armor that had been worn by champions throughout the Crusade's history. Its ceramite plates were black as midnight, edged with gold trim and decorated with purity seals that carried the prayers of thousands of warriors. The armor had been maintained with religious devotion, every scratch repaired, every system perfected. As the armor was fitted piece by piece, Christoph felt its machine spirit respond to him with what almost seemed like eagerness. The armor had served dozens of champions over the centuries. It knew its purpose. When the last plate was locked into place and the neural connections were established, Christoph felt more complete than he had ever felt in standard battle plate. The second item was the Black Sword, a master-crafted power weapon that gleamed with lethal purpose. The blade was nearly 5 feet long, perfectly balanced despite its size. When activated, its power field would allow it to cleave through any armor, any defense. The sword had been wielded by the first Black Templar to serve as Emperor's champion in this crusade and had passed through many hands since. Each champion had added to its legend with their deeds. Brother Chaplain Corvus presented the sword to Christoph, holding it horizontally across both palms. "This is the Black Sword," he intoned. "Forged in faith, quenched in the blood of the Emperor's enemies, and wielded by the chosen of our chapter. Take it, champion. Let it be the instrument of the Emperor's judgment." Christoph grasped the sword's hilt, and the moment his armored fingers closed around it, he felt power surge through him. This was no ordinary weapon. It had been blessed by every chaplain who had served the crusade, consecrated in hundreds of battles, and had drunk deep of enemy blood. The sword seemed to resonate with his own faith, amplifying it, focusing it into razor-sharp purpose. He held the Black Sword aloft, and every Black Templar in the chapel raised their voices in a battle cry that shook the walls. "No pity, no remorse, no fear." Christoph repeated the words, letting them become a promise. No pity, no remorse, no fear. He was the Emperor's champion now. There was no turning back. The Crusade fleet emerged from the warp into the Armageddon system 2 days later, and the sight that greeted them was apocalyptic. The planet itself was visible even from the system's edge, a sphere of browns and greys, wreathed in smoke from countless fires. The orbital space around Armageddon was a war zone, with Imperial Navy vessels engaged in desperate combat against ramshackle orc ships and captured space hulks. As the Black Templar fleet advanced toward the planet, they received tactical briefings from the Armageddon Defense Force. The situation was dire. Orc forces had made landfall in dozens of locations, smashing through defensive lines that should have held against any conventional attack. The greenskins numbered in the billions, an endless tide that threatened to drown the planet's defenders through sheer mass. High Marshal Helbrecht had taken command of the Adeptus Astartes fleet operations, coordinating the efforts of not just the Black Templars, but also contingents from several other chapters who had answered Armageddon's call. The strategic situation was complex, but the tactical solution was simple: kill orcs until none remained. Christoph's crusade was assigned to the defense of Hive Hellsreach, one of Armageddon's major population centers and industrial complexes. The Hive was under siege by a massive orc force that had emerged from the southern polar regions, using crude submarines to cross the planet's ice seas. The defending forces consisted of regiments from the Armageddon Steel Legion, local militia, and a contingent of Adepta Sororitas from the Order of the Argent Shroud. Leading the defense was Reclusiarch Grimaldus, one of the most famous chaplains in the entire Black Templars chapter. Grimaldus had recently been elevated to his position after his mentor's death, and this would be his first major command. He had brought with him over 100 Black Templars, a significant force by any measure. Christoph's arrival as the Crusade's Emperor's champion added another element to the defense. When the Thunderhawks delivered him and his brothers to Hell's Reach, Grimaldus himself came to meet them at the landing zone. The Reclusiarch's skull-faced helmet regarded Christoph with what might have been respect or assessment. "So," Grimaldus said, "you are the one who has received the Emperor's vision. I have heard of such things, but this is the first time I have fought alongside an Emperor's champion. Tell me, brother, what did our Lord show you?" Christoph described his vision as accurately as he could, speaking of the ruined city, the massive temple, the endless waves of orcs, and himself standing against that tide with the black sword blazing. Grimaldus nodded slowly. "There is a temple here that matches your description. The Temple of the Emperor Ascendant, the largest cathedral in Hell's Reach. If your vision is true, that is where the crucial battle will take place. We will make our stand there, champion, and when the orcs come, we will show them the Emperor's wrath." The defense of Hell's Reach began within days of the Black Templars' arrival. The orc forces approached the hive in numbers that defied comprehension. They came in crude war vehicles, on foot, even riding enormous beasts bred for war. They came with a roar that could be heard for miles, a sound like thunder made from thousands of bestial voices. Christoph fought in the front lines from the first moment of contact. As the Emperor's champion, he was expected to seek out the greatest threats and destroy them. He found no shortage of targets. Orc nobs led their mobs with savage enthusiasm. War bosses drove their armies forward with brutal efficiency. And towering over them all were the orc mega-armored war bosses, massive creatures encased in salvaged metal and wielding weapons that could tear apart vehicles. The black sword sang as it cleaved through orc flesh. Christoph moved through the battlefield like a force of nature, his armor shining bright against the smoke and flames. He killed a nob leading a charge against the Imperial lines, cutting the creature in half with a single overhead strike. He destroyed a mega-armored war boss by dodging its power claw and driving the black sword through the joints in its armor, finding the vulnerable flesh beneath. And with each kill, with each moment of combat, he felt the visions growing stronger. No longer did they come only in moments of meditation or prayer. Now they came even in the midst of battle. He would see flashes of future moments, glimpses of battles yet to come. He saw himself fighting in the Temple of the Emperor Ascendant, just as his original vision had shown. He saw his brothers falling and rising, victory and defeat existing simultaneously, until the moment when action would collapse possibility into reality. The visions did not make him invulnerable. He took wounds, his armor breached by orc weapons that found gaps in his defenses. But each time he fell, he rose again, driven by faith and the certainty that his purpose was not yet fulfilled. Brother Chaplain Corvus, who had verified Christoph's initial vision, fought often at his side. After one particularly brutal engagement, as they stood among the bodies of perhaps 100 slain orcs, Corvus spoke to him about the nature of his visions. "The Emperor's champions throughout our history have reported similar experiences," the chaplain said. "The visions intensify during combat, showing possible futures, guiding decisions. Some say this is the Emperor reaching through the warp to guide his chosen warriors. Others believe it is latent psychic ability awakened by faith and circumstance. Does it matter which interpretation is correct?" Christoph considered the question as he cleaned green blood from the black sword. "No," he said finally. "Whether the visions come from the Emperor directly or from some part of myself attuned to his will, the result is the same. I am guided toward actions that serve his purpose. That is enough." "A wise answer," Corvus acknowledged. But I warn you, champion, the visions can become overwhelming. They can blur the line between what is real and what is merely possible. If you feel yourself losing that distinction, speak to me or another chaplain immediately. An emperor's champion driven mad by visions serves no one. The warning proved prescient. As the siege of Hell's Reach dragged on for weeks and then months, Christoph found the visions becoming increasingly intrusive. He would be speaking with a brother and suddenly see that brother falling in battle 3 days hence. He would be planning an assault and have flashes of a dozen different outcomes, depending on slight variations in approach. He began to question which moments were real and which were yet to come. Sleep became nearly impossible. When he tried to rest, the visions continued, vivid dreams that felt more real than reality itself. He would wake exhausted, his mind filled with images of battles he had not yet fought, but somehow remembered with perfect clarity. The other Black Templars noticed the change in him. They saw the Emperor's champion walking among them like a man haunted by ghosts only he could see. Some viewed this with reverence, believing that Christoph was being granted deeper and deeper insights into the Emperor's will. Others worried that their champion was being slowly broken by the burden he carried. But Christoph refused to yield to the madness that threatened to consume him. He clung to his faith like a drowning man clings to a rope, using prayer and meditation to anchor himself in the present moment. When the visions became too intense, he would find Brother Chaplain Corvus and speak with him, letting the chaplain's wisdom guide him back to stability. "The Emperor has chosen you for a reason," Corvus reminded him during one such conversation. "But he does not ask his servants to lose themselves in service. You must maintain your sense of self, your ability to distinguish between what is and what might be. Without that anchor, you cannot fulfill your purpose." The words became a mantra that Christoph repeated during his worst moments. "I am Christoph, Emperor's champion of the Black Templars. I serve the God Emperor in the defense of Hell's Reach. I will not lose myself to visions. I will remain anchored in reality until my purpose is fulfilled." As Reclusiarch Grimaldus had predicted, the crucial battle came at the Temple of the Emperor Ascendant. The Orcs had fought their way deep into Hell's Reach, grinding through the city's defenses through sheer numbers and savage determination. The temple stood near the heart of the hive, a massive structure that had served as a place of worship for millions of citizens before the war. Now, it would serve as the final defensive position. Grimaldus gathered the remaining Black Templars for a final briefing before the Orcs reached the temple. They numbered perhaps 80 warriors now, having lost brothers in the brutal fighting throughout the hive. They were joined by a handful of Adepta Sororitas who had survived the siege, several dozen Steel Legion troopers, and a single Titan from the Legio Invigilata that had fought through the Orc lines to support the defense. "Brothers," Grimaldus said, his skull-faced helm sweeping across the assembled warriors, "we stand at the precipice of history. This temple has stood for 5,000 years, a monument to the Emperor's glory. The Orcs seek to defile it, to tear it down, and build their crude shrines upon its ruins. We will not allow this to happen. We will hold this temple, or we will die trying. There is no third option." Christoph stood among his brothers, the black sword held ready, and felt the visions coalescing around him. For weeks he had seen fragments, possibilities, variations. Now they unified into a single clear vision of what was to come. He saw the Orcs breaking against the temple's walls like a green tide against stone. He saw Black Templars falling, but never yielding. He saw himself standing at the temple's main entrance, the black sword blazing in his hands, cutting down any Orc that dared approach. And he saw something else. He saw the moment when the tide would turn, when the Orcs' momentum would finally break. He saw the specific Orc war boss leading the assault, a massive creature wearing salvaged power armor and wielding a weapon cobbled together from a dozen different sources. If that war boss fell, the Orc assault would falter, but the visions showed him no easy path to that victory. He stepped forward, and every eye turned to him. "Reclusiarch," he said, I know how we win this battle. The Emperor has shown me, but the path is costly. Grimaldus studied him for a long moment. Speak, champion. What has the Emperor revealed? Christoph described the war boss and its location within the Orc army. He explained that if they could kill this specific target, the Orc assault would lose cohesion. But reaching the war boss would require pushing deep into the Orc lines, a mission that would be essentially suicidal for anyone who attempted it. Then we will make that attempt, Grimaldus said without hesitation. I will lead a strike force to engage the war boss. Champion, you will remain at the temple to anchor the defense. Your presence here will inspire our brothers to hold against any assault. But Christoph shook his head. No, Reclusiarch. The vision shows me confronting the war boss. If anyone else makes the attempt, they will fail. This is the burden the Emperor has placed upon me. I must be the one to do this. The other Black Templars erupted in protests. For the Emperor's champion to undertake such a mission would leave the defense without its greatest inspiration. His death would be a devastating blow to morale at the worst possible moment. But Christoph remained adamant. I understand your concerns, brothers, he said, raising his voice to be heard over the protests. But I am the Emperor's champion. I carry his will. If he has shown me what must be done, then I must do it regardless of the cost. Trust in the Emperor's plan. Trust that he has prepared for every possibility. Grimaldus finally silenced the protests with a gesture. The champion is correct, he said. We do not choose our burdens. The Emperor assigns them, and we carry them unto death. Champion, you will make your assault when the Orcs reach the temple. The rest of us will hold here and ensure your sacrifice is not wasted. The word sacrifice hung in the air like a blade. Everyone present understood that Christoph was unlikely to return from this mission. But that was the nature of being the Emperor's champion. The role demanded everything, offered nothing but the honor of service. As the defenders took their positions throughout the temple, Christoph stood at the main entrance and prayed. Not for survival, because that was neither promised nor particularly important. Not for victory, because the Emperor's will would be done regardless of his prayers. He prayed for strength, strength to fulfill his purpose, strength to remain himself even as the visions threatened to drown his identity, strength to die well if that was what was required. The Orc assault began an hour later, and it was more terrible than anything Christoph had experienced in 4 decades of warfare. The Greenskins came in a tide that seemed to have no end, thousands upon thousands of savage creatures howling their battle cries and firing crude weapons. They threw themselves against the temple's defenses with absolute disregard for casualties. The Black Templars met them with bolt of fire and blade. Every shot was a prayer. Every strike was an act of faith. They held the entrances and the walls, killing Orcs by the dozens, by the hundreds. But still, the Greenskins came. Christoph fought at the main entrance, exactly as his vision had shown. The black sword blazed with holy fire as it cut down Orc after Orc. His armor was scorched and dented by enemy weapons, but he gave no ground behind him. The chapel of the temple rang with the sounds of prayer as the few surviving clergy continued their devotions, even as war raged at their doorstep. Hours passed in a blur of violence. Christoph lost count of how many Orcs he killed. His chainsword had long since been discarded, its motor burned out from constant use. The black sword was all he needed, its power field never faltering no matter how many times it struck home. Then, through the chaos of battle, he saw it. The Orc war boss, exactly as his vision had shown. The creature was pushing through its own army, driving forward with brutal determination. It stood nearly 12 feet tall in its salvaged power armor, and it wielded what appeared to be a power claw merged with a massive chain axe, a hybrid weapon that defied logic but looked devastatingly effective. This was the moment. Christoph could feel it in his bones, in his soul. The vision had led him to this precise instant. Everything that came before had been preparation for this confrontation. "Grimaldus!" He voxed over the comm channel. "I see the target. I'm making my assault now." "Emperor be with you, champion," the Reclusiarch responded. "We will hold here." Christoph charged into the Orc army, leaving the relative safety of the temple entrance. His sudden advance caught the Greenskins by surprise. They had expected the Black Templars to remain defensive, to hold their fortified position. The Emperor's champion charging directly into their midst was not something their simple minds had anticipated. He cut through the Orcs like a blade through flesh, the black sword singing as it cleaved heads from shoulders and limbs from bodies. His armor's servo motors strained as he moved with speed that should have been impossible, his enhanced physiology pushed beyond normal limits by faith and desperation. The warboss saw him coming and let out a roar of challenge. The creature was eager for this fight, seeing the champion's black armor and glowing sword as worthy opponent. It shoved aside its own warriors and charged to meet Christoph's advance. They met in the middle of the battle, two champions representing opposing sides of an eternal war. The warboss swung its hybrid weapon in a massive overhead strike that would have split Christoph in half if it had connected. But the champion had seen this moment in his visions. He knew exactly how the warboss would attack, could predict every move before it happened. He dodged to the side, letting the weapon slam into the ground where he had been standing. Before the orc could recover, Christoph struck with the black sword, driving the blade through the gap between the warboss's helmet and chest plate. The power field carved through flesh and bone, and green blood sprayed in a fountain. But the warboss was not so easily killed. It roared in pain and rage, swinging its weapon in a wild horizontal arc. Christoph tried to dodge, but was not quite fast enough. The weapon caught him in the side, tearing through ceramite and plasteel and the flesh beneath. Pain exploded through his torso, and he felt ribs breaking, internal organs rupturing. He staggered, but did not fall. Could not fall. Not yet. The vision showed him victorious, showed the warboss dying, showed the orc assault breaking. He had to fulfill that vision, or everything would be for nothing. Christoph drove the black sword forward with all his remaining strength, piercing the warboss's power armor and driving deep into its chest. The blade found the creature's hearts, both of them, and the orc's roar of rage became a gurgle of death. The warboss fell, its massive body crashing to the ground like a felled tree. The surrounding orcs paused in confusion, seeing their leader slain. That moment of hesitation was all Christoph needed. He raised the black sword high, the blade still blazing with holy fire despite being coated in orc blood. "For the Emperor!" he roared, his voice amplified by his armor's vox speakers, carrying across the battlefield. "In his name, we are victorious!" The Black Templars defending the temple heard his cry and took up the battle cry themselves. They surged forward from their defensive positions, charging into the orc army with renewed ferocity. The orcs, already shaken by their warboss's death, began to break and flee. Christoph stood in the midst of the battlefield, the black sword held high, and felt the vision finally coming to completion. He had done what the Emperor asked of him. He had fulfilled his purpose. Then his strength failed. The wound in his side was mortal, he realized. The warboss's weapon had done more damage than he had initially thought. He could feel his body shutting down, systems failing one by one. His armor's medical alerts were screaming warnings that he ignored. He fell to his knees, still holding the black sword. Around him, the battle continued as the Black Templars pursued the fleeing orcs, but Christoph's part in it was finished. Brother Chaplain Corvus reached him first, having fought his way through the orc lines to reach his champion. The chaplain's skull-faced helmet looked down at Christoph, and even through the emotionless ceramite, Christoph could sense grief. "The Emperor's champion has fallen," Corvus said softly, and his words carried the weight of ritual pronouncement. "His service is complete. His sacrifice has brought us victory." "Not sacrifice," Christoph managed to say, each word costing him tremendous effort. "Purpose. I fulfilled my purpose. I saw the Emperor, Corvus. He showed me what needed to be done, and I did it. There is no greater honor than this." Other Black Templars were gathering now, forming a protective circle around their fallen champion. Reclusiarch Grimaldus knelt beside him, removing his skull-faced helmet to reveal the scarred face beneath. "Brother champion," Grimaldus said, "you have brought honor to our chapter and glory to the Emperor. Your name will be remembered. Your deeds will be recorded in our histories. You will live forever in the memory of those you inspired." Christoph tried to respond, but found he no longer had the strength. His vision was fading, darkness creeping in from the edges. But he was not afraid. He had seen the Emperor. He had served his purpose. What came next, whether it was death or something beyond, held no terror for him. His last thought, before consciousness faded entirely, was a prayer, not a plea for mercy or salvation, just a simple expression of gratitude. "Thank you for allowing me to serve." Christoph did not die on that battlefield, though perhaps it would have been better if he had. His body was broken, his organs failing, but the Black Templars' apothecaries were skilled in preserving life, even when death seemed certain. They stabilized him, repaired what could be repaired, and kept him alive through a combination of medical science and faith. When he finally regained consciousness, he was aboard one of the Crusade fleet's battle barges, lying in the Apothecarion surrounded by machines that monitored his vital signs. Weeks had passed since the battle at the Temple of the Emperor Ascendant. The siege of Hell's Reach had ended in Imperial victory, though at terrible cost. Nearly half the Black Templars who had defended the hive had fallen. Brother Chaplain Corvus was there when Christoph opened his eyes. The chaplain had apparently been keeping vigil, waiting for his champion to return to consciousness. "Brother," Corvus said, and there was something in his voice that Christoph had never heard before. Relief, perhaps, or concern. "You have returned to us. The Emperor has not yet called you to his side." Christoph tried to speak but found his throat too dry. Corvus helped him drink water, then waited patiently as Christoph gathered his thoughts. "The battle," Christoph finally managed. "We won." "We did," Corvus confirmed. "Your slaying of the Orc war boss broke their assault. The temple stands, Hell's Reach stands, and across Armageddon, the Orc forces are being driven back. The war is not yet won, but we have turned the tide. Much of that is due to your actions, champion." Champion. The word felt strange now. Christoph could no longer feel the divine presence that had defined his recent existence. The visions that had plagued him for months were gone, leaving behind only memory. He felt diminished, as if some essential part of himself had been taken away. "I no longer see the Emperor," he said, and his voice carried a note of loss that surprised him. "The visions have stopped." Corvus nodded slowly. "The visions come when the Emperor needs them to come. They cease when their purpose is fulfilled. You may never experience them again, or they may return in time of great need. There is no way to know. But this I can tell you with certainty. You have borne the burden of being the Emperor's champion, and you have borne it well. Few warriors in our chapter's history can claim the same." Christoph spent the next 3 months recovering from his wounds. The damage had been extensive. His body could heal, enhanced as it was by the gene seed, but the process was slow and painful. He underwent surgeries to repair damaged organs, physical therapy to rebuild strength, and endless hours of meditation to process what he had experienced. Other Black Templars visited him during his recovery. They came to pay their respects to the warrior who had inspired them during the defense of Hell's Reach. They spoke of how his charge into the Orc army had given them courage to hold their positions. They told him that his name was being added to the chapter's rolls of honor, that his deeds would be remembered for as long as the Black Templars existed. But Christoph felt strangely detached from all this praise. The warrior they described seemed like a different person. He remembered the events, of course. He remembered fighting at the temple, killing the war boss, holding the black sword high. But those memories felt distant, as if they had happened to someone else. The visions had changed him in ways that went beyond physical wounds. He had touched something divine, or at least something that felt divine, and now that contact was gone. He felt like a man who had stood in the presence of a son and was now forced to exist, in perpetual shadow. Brother Chaplain Corvus, sensing his struggle, spoke with him frequently about the nature of faith and service. Many Emperor's champions report similar feelings after their visions cease, the chaplain explained. They feel abandoned, as if the Emperor has withdrawn his favor. But this is not abandonment. The Emperor does not love you less because he no longer sends you visions. You served your purpose, champion. Now you must find purpose in ordinary service, just as you did before you received the Emperor's call. The words helped, but they did not entirely heal the wound in Christoph's soul. He had been chosen for something extraordinary, had touched the divine, and now he was expected to return to being an ordinary space marine. The transition was more difficult than any physical recovery. When he was finally cleared to return to active duty, Christoph found that his role within the chapter had changed. He was no longer the Emperor's champion, that title having passed to another warrior in a different crusade who had received his own visions. But neither was he simply an initiate anymore. He had become something else, a veteran marked by extraordinary experience. He was assigned to a Sword Brethren squad, elevated to that elite status in recognition of his service as champion. The Sword Brethren were the chapter's most experienced warriors, veterans who had proven themselves through decades or centuries of warfare. They served as the Marshal's household guard, led assault forces in the most dangerous missions, and wore tactical dreadnought armor when the situation demanded it. It was an honor, and Christoph tried to view it as such. But a part of him, a part he did not speak of to anyone except Corvus, mourned the loss of his champion status. Not because of the glory or recognition, but because of the connection he had felt to something greater than himself. The crusade continued. The war for Armageddon eventually ended in something approaching imperial victory, though Gazkul himself escaped to plague the Imperium another day. High Marshal Helbrecht led a pursuit force that chased the Orc warlord across the galaxy, swearing mighty oaths to hunt him to the edges of reality if necessary. Christoph's crusade fleet returned to the wider Imperium, resuming their eternal quest to cleanse the galaxy of the Emperor's enemies. They fought Chaos cultists on shrine worlds, Xenos raiders on frontier colonies, and renegade Imperial forces that had turned from the light of the Emperor. Each battle was important. Each victory served the Emperor's will, but none of it felt the same as when Christoph had carried the Black Sword and seen visions of what was to come. Years passed, then decades. Christoph continued to serve with distinction, accumulating more honors and commendations. He trained new neophytes, passing on the lessons he had learned through a century of warfare. He fought alongside warriors who had heard the stories of his time as Emperor's champion and viewed him with something approaching awe. But he never forgot what it had felt like to stand in the presence of the divine, to receive visions from the Emperor himself. That experience had marked him permanently, leaving a scar on his soul that would never fully heal. Sometimes, in the quiet moments between battles, he would visit the Crusade Fleet's chapel and kneel before the statue of the Emperor. He would pray not for visions or divine contact, but simply to express his willingness to serve however the Emperor saw fit. If the visions never returned, that was acceptable. If he was never again called to be champion, that was fine. He had been granted that honor once, and once was enough for any lifetime. What mattered now was continuing the crusade. The oath that Sigismund had sworn 10,000 years ago still bound every Black Templar. They would never rest, never cease in their prosecution of the Emperor's enemies. They would fight until the galaxy was cleansed, or until the last Black Templar fell. And Christoph would be among them, a zealot in service to the God Emperor, a warrior marked by divine purpose, fighting until death finally claimed him in some distant battle on some unknown world. He had seen the Emperor once. He had carried the divine will into battle, and even if he never experienced such closeness to the divine again, he would carry the memory of that moment for however many centuries of service remained to him. This was the brutal life of a Black Templar who had seen the Emperor, a life of endless warfare, tempered by the knowledge that he had touched something holy, a life, defined by faith tested in the crucible of battle, by visions that blurred the line between divine guidance and madness, by service that demanded everything and offered only the honor of dying well. The Emperor's champion walks a path few can understand, and fewer still can endure. They carry the weight of divine purpose, see futures that may never come to pass, and fight knowing that their service may end at any moment. They are living weapons, wielded by the Emperor himself against the darkness that threatens to consume humanity. Christoph had walked that path. He had borne that burden. And though the visions had ceased and his time as champion had ended, he remained forever changed by the experience. He was a Black Templar, a crusader in service to the God Emperor, and his war would never end. The Black Templars' eternal crusade continues even now, more than 10,000 years after Sigismund swore his oath. They fight on countless worlds, in every corner of the galaxy, bringing the Emperor's wrath to his enemies. Among their ranks are warriors who have seen what Christoph saw, who have been touched by the divine and marked as champions. Each one carries their burden differently, but all serve the same purpose. In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. But for those who have seen the Emperor, who have been granted visions of his will and purpose, that war takes on meaning beyond mere survival. It becomes a sacred duty, a holy crusade that gives purpose to existence and transforms death from an ending into a fulfillment. This is what it means to be the Emperor's champion. This is the brutal life of a Black Templar who saw the Emperor. A life consumed by faith, defined by warfare, and ultimately measured not in years, but in service. They fight, they bleed, they die, and they are remembered. And through their sacrifice, the Imperium endures. If you enjoyed learning about this brutal existence, the life of a warrior caught between divinity and madness, then please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. We dive deep into the darkest corners of the Warhammer 40,000 universe, exploring the stories of those who fight in the Emperor's name. There are more tales to tell, more warriors to remember, more battles to recount. Join us as we continue to explore this grim darkness where there is only war and where faith is the only weapon that never fails. The Emperor protects, and his champions fight until they can fight no more.